Hello, my name is İpek Şencan. I am working as a research assistant at the Department of Information Management at Hacettepe University. Today, I will talk about students' awareness about this concept in this presentation. This study is based on my doctoral thesis, which presents a draft training content for news literacy. Within the scope of the thesis, a training program was adapted and applied, and the effectiveness of this training was evaluated. For this purpose, the quasi-experimental method was used. The data used in this research, which was carried out in 2 separate academic years, were collected through experimental and control groups consisting of students. In this presentation, only the findings of the experimental groups, in other words, the training groups, were presented. The study focused on the students' perception of news, their knowledge and skills to distinguish the concepts such as news, opinion, and advertisement, which are among the important outputs of news literacy training program. Looking at the dictionary definitions of the concept of news, it's seen that the expressions belonging to traditional news environments are in the foreground. For example, a television or radio program consisting of reports about recent events, and a printed or broadcast report of information about important events in the world, the country, or the local area. On the other hand, with the new media, a new form of communication has emerged based on interaction, in which different broadcasting options can be used. Depending on the characteristics of this communication practice, the ability of the users to send messages to the people they want marks this form of communication. This new form of communication is called mass self-communication. For example, a video published on YouTube is a mass communication tool in that it has the potential to reach a global audience. On the other hand, this type of video is also considered as a self-communication tool, as the person produces the content herself, identifies the potential buyers herself, and determines which content to transmit or receive. This new process, which can also be called the digital revolution, has also caused a change in both traditional news media and what is perceived as news. The proliferation of online platforms has provided journalists with new ways to reach their audiences. On the other hand, the digitalization of news is characterized as a challenge to traditional news definitions. The concept of citizen journalism has emerged as a result of non-journalists engaging in journalism activities to produce journalistic outputs, including news. Social media is among the channels where examples of citizen journalism are observed most intensely. These mediums have not only changed news distribution, but also challenged traditional beliefs about how news should appear. For example, today, a tweet with a limited number of characters is considered as news, especially if it comes from authority institutions or individuals. At this point, it's possible to say that social media not only changes the concept of news, but also blurs the perception about information sources. For example, a news organization may publish a news article through a traditionally printed newspaper or newspaper's website, but that article may reach the target audience through different channels, either through another news site, a Facebook account, or posts shared on different social networks. This situation forces the traditional definitions of news transmission channels to change. And why is news awareness important? Awareness of the concept of news is important because being able to distinguish between personal opinion and reality is vitally important today. The most basic feature of the post-truth period is that personal feelings and thoughts are more prominent than facts. This paves the way for misinformation and fake news to spread and people to believe them. And if individuals know the features that a news should have, such impartiality, transparency, they can more easily distinguish between news and concepts such as opinion and advertisement. Being able to distinguish the news from other concepts is also important for checking the accuracy of the information conveyed in the news. For example, 5 Ws, which is expected to be in the news, is a very helpful element in researching the accuracy of the news. All these are among the most fundamental achievements of news literacy training. Based on all these, the aim of this study is to reveal students' current perception of news and to evaluate their ability to distinguish news, opinion, advertisement, and similar concepts. The research question is defined as, are students able to distinguish news from opinion, fact, advertisement, or media? When we look at the methodology, this study was conducted with the Hacettepe University Department of Information Management first-year students. Volunteer students who agreed to participate in the pre- and post-test and training program formed the experimental group. The study was carried out in 2 different academic years. In this presentation, the first year is referred to as NL1, in other words, News Literacy 1, and the second year as NL2. There were 20 students in the first year and 16 students in the second year in the experimental groups. After the experimental groups were determined, in the second step, a pretest was applied to the students in each year in order to determine their current news literacy knowledge and skill levels before starting the training. Then, the news literacy training was applied, in which concepts such as news, opinions, and advertisements were explained. After the training was completed, a post-test was applied to see whether the training created a change in the knowledge and skills of the students. The tests applied in the first year were evaluated, and according to the obtained results, some modifications and updates were made in the training content. In the second year, an experimental group was formed again, and the same process was applied to them. The updated training program was applied to the students in this group. The results obtained in the second year were also reviewed, and the training was given its final outline. In this presentation, the pre- and post-test results of the experimental group students in both years are presented regarding their perception of news and their ability to distinguish related concepts. Questions for distinguishing the concepts were scored. Accordingly, each correct answer for each question is 1 point. And when we look at the students' news following status, it's seen that 18 out of 20 students in NL1 and 13 out of 16 students in NL2 follow the news. In both years, the most preferred sources by the students who follow the news are online news sites and websites or apps of newspapers. It's followed by television. And it is noteworthy that the social circle is also at the forefront among the most preferred sources. And how students describe news. In order to see the students' perceptions of the news more closely, we asked what they understood from the news and how they defined the news accordingly. Let's take a look at the words in their definitions. In the pretest, looking at the prominent words in all definitions, it's seen that the words information, event, people, and word were dominated in NL1. The words people, information, event were dominated in NL2. Just like in pretest, it is seen that the words people, information, event, and inform are used extensively in the post-test in NL1. The words people, inform, society, and information, interest, and event were dominated in NL2. In addition, the fact that the words 5 Ws and fact started to take place in the definitions suggests that the students started to assimilate the information they gained from the training. It's seen that the prominent words, all the definitions made by students in both tests are compatible with the dictionary definitions given in the introduction. On the other hand, it is noteworthy that concepts such as the internet, online platforms, or social media don't come to the fore in the definitions of the students. Although students are following news from online platforms intensively, they don't seem to reflect this in their definitions at the conceptual level. When we look at the distributions of expected responses given to each statement related to concepts. In pretest, a question directly related to the rule that journalists frequently refer to when reporting was included. The rate of those who can answer this question correctly, which is 5 Ws, is higher in the first year's group. Half of the students in second year stated that they didn't know the answer to the question. The other half answered the question correctly. In the post-test, the rate of the correct answers to this question, which was asked as true-false question, increased in both groups. All the students of the second year answered this question correctly. It is estimated that the emphasis on the 5 Ws rule during the news literacy training may have played a role in this increase. On the other hand, while the students didn't have difficulty in answering one of the two different news definitions correctly in both tests, it was observed that they had difficulty in the other definition. At this point, it can be said that students experience some confusion in distinguishing the definition of news, although they had news literacy training. In addition, it is seen that the students made progress in the post-test in distinguishing the concepts of media and fact. When the students' performances are evaluated on the scores they got from this question, it can be said that the experimental group students in NL1 didn't show any improvement in their ability to distinguish concepts such as news, media, and advertisement after the training. While the second year's experimental group performed better, it's seen that the standard deviation value of these students' scores also decreased in the post-test. As a matter of fact, it was determined that there was a positive increase in the knowledge and skill levels of the experimental group students in NL2 after the training. And this increase was statistically significant. In addition to this, a question consisting of examples such as news, opinion articles like column, advertisements, refutations or corrections, and broadcast streams was also asked to the students. In this question, students were expected to mark the news stories. There were 2 news stories samples in the options that was expected to be marked. It is possible to say that students perform better when it comes to distinguishing examples of compare their definitions. On the other hand, when the answers given are examined, it is seen that the tendency of the students both years perceive the column as news has increased. Since there are 2 correct choices in this question, the maximum score that students can get from this question is 2. The rate of students marking the news samples correctly is high in both the pre and post tests. And students' achievements didn't show a significant change in the pre and post tests, and no statistically significant difference was observed between their scores. To sum up, we can say that students have the ability to identify elements such as opinions, news, and advertisements after the training. The training program is reflected in the news descriptions of the students, such as 5 Ws. Concept definitions in the related modules should be supported by more examples. It can also facilitate learning. And the boundaries of some concepts needed to be drawn more clearly. This is especially important in terms of distinguishing opinions from facts. And thanks for listening. Any questions or comments, you can contact with us.